couple of weeks ago, there was a major vote in the UN General Assembly on a resolution. Now, before I go any further, you know that I have this thing for reparations. Apparently, Ghanaian foreign minister has submitted a resolution, and this was 2 weeks ago now, submitted a resolution and to come up for a vote before the full UN General Assembly. Right? So on March 25, 2026, the UN General Assembly adopted a historic resolution. And the name of it was A/80/L.48. And in it, they declared that the transatlantic slave trade was the greatest crime against humanity. The greatest crime against humanity. This resolution, spearheaded by Ghana and the African Union, is a massive step in the push for global reparations. While not legally binding, it creates a new moral and political framework for restitution and compensation and formal apologies when it comes to us, even though they had a heavy hand in it back in the day. But, that's a topic for another day. But right now, focus on this resolution brought by the Ghanaians, right? Abstain. Okay, I told you about that. Absent 15. Okay, that's not bad. 15 countries. That's not bad. The African Union, with all those votes in, and it passed. There were 3 countries that voted against this resolution. And it just acknowledged that what happened to us, my FBA, and my ancestors, was the greatest crime against humanity ever. And I think so. But I think, there are some things behind the scenes. Let's take, for instance, Argentina. Argentina got a line of credit from the Trump administration of $20 billion. On top of that, a lot of the Nazis from World War II that were able to escape, they escaped to Argentina. So, of course, the right-wing Nazis, of course, they're going to vote against it. Israel, that's what I don't understand. Israel.
A historic vote at the United Nations on slavery.
Therefore, draft resolution A/80/L48 is adopted.
Historical justice versus legal risk. Support is led by Ghana and backed up by the African group.
And their descendants through the transatlantic slave trade. The resolution put forward by Ghana was harshly criticized.
Let's just look at some of the behind the scenes motivations and why vote no or why abstain or why agree. Okay, first thing is that the debate was really about wanted the UN to formally recognize the transatlantic slave trade as a uniquely grave crime, and to open the door to the reparatory justice, including apologies, returns of cultural property, and, of course, possible compensation frameworks. Now, why was it initiated by Africa? Why did they push this thing? And I'm wondering, all right? All right, many African governments see the resolution as part of a larger reparations campaign, not just a symbolic gesture. They argue that the slave trade's legacy still shows up in racial inequality, underdevelopment, cultural loss, and the exclusion of African states from the global power structures. So Ghana's role reflected a broader African Union push to elevate reparations on the international agenda and to build momentum for a continent-wide position. And what are the political stakes for Africa? For African countries, the vote was a way to force global acknowledgement of harms that were long, minimized or treated as distant history. It also gave diplomatic weight to demands for the reparations conversation. Let's repeat that. It also gave diplomatic weight to demands for reparations conversation that had mostly been regional or moral rather than global. The resolution supporters saw it as moral awareness and a route towards healing and justice. Okay, so I always knew that there was a motivation. I've heard it, nothing official, but this resolution, the UN resolution back in March, just showed me that if you don't have a leader or you don't have any type of hierarchy as Black Americans, then you have to maybe depend on some country putting this forward, like Ghana. All right, they have, if anything, Ghana owes us reparations. It owes us reparations, meaning the FBAs or the Americans descended from slaves are owed reparations. Now, I knew there was some that motivation is there, all right? But other things that I'm thinking about is the European states, okay? A lot of them are staying. I think they were good in doing that. I mean, if you don't have anything to say, don't say anything. So an abstention to me is the same thing as saying, oh, okay, I'm neutral, which they should be, because reparations from an international perspective is not something that we need to do, that we should be worried about. Reparations for the foundational Black American or the Black American-born descendant slaves, that's a different issue. It should not be rolled up into a global issue, all right? A global demand or a global resolution. I don't think I don't agree with that. And the reason I don't agree with that is the slave trade was originated in Western Africa. And the West African countries, such as Ghana and Nigeria, coast, all those countries on the west coast of Africa, a lot of them participated in that heavily and made money. Even the Europeans were like, when they first got there, and they said, I can't understand how people can sell their own people. I mean, y'all guys got to respond to that. How can you initiate reparations when you were part of the slave trade? How can you reconcile that and ask for reparations? What the colonists did to you, such as England and France and Portugal, etc., that is on them. All right, I agree with you. That's on them. But I don't agree with you. But then again, on the other hand, what are we going to do? Because we are not cohesive as a group to formulate any type of plan that represents all of us. So I think that the best thing to do is put it on the Democratic platform. That should be part of the Democratic platform going into 28. All right. And I think that with the midterms, if the Democrats should win the House and the Senate, they should add reparations to their agenda. I believe that the Democrats, as I said, should have as part of their platform reparations, all Black Americans, either way you want to call it. But as a foundational Black American, I have been fighting for reparations through my podcast, what little I can do, to throw it out there and make people aware. And I know a lot of our folks saying, we don't need that money. Well, just give us your money then. Put it in a general fund, all right? They can help build out our neighborhoods, reduce crime. There's things that we can do with that money. And then bring up our standard of living for us and then our descendants. That's what we should be doing. Okay? What happened in the UN, with this UN resolution for reparatory damages, that's good. But let them not forget that reparations as it applies to the Black American descendants of slaves is a separate and distinct situation, or it requires addressing independently of any global initiative out there for reparations. And as I said earlier, if anybody need reparations, it's the Black American. I mean, Ghana, y'all guys got your own country. You have control over your destiny, I would hope. Now that you're in a situation where you got to borrow money and all this kind of stuff. But I do have a recommendation, though, that if all of y'all guys would come together with us, with one of our designated representatives, one or two, whoever we designate, and they can be at a political level, they can be senators or House of Representative members. Yeah, they should spearhead this for us. Not for us, they represent us. They came from us. So we need to start reaching out. I don't know how we're going to do it. I think the best way to do it is to escalate it to whoever's running for office as a Democrat or as a Republican. To get the black vote, you got to pay for the black vote. We want something for something. We don't want to give you something for nothing, because that's been the status quo. Okay. Oh, guys, I do want to talk a little bit more about Israel. And I said, leading into Israel, this thing is something, and they voted against it. All right, let's do this. Why did Israel join with the United States, which I understand, because they know that they got a big financial obligation to us, even though they may not acknowledge it at this time, but oppose this slavery resolution, despite broad global support. And why did Israel vote against reparations? Maybe it wasn't specific enough to them, but don't forget, they are slaves financially to the United States. We support them. Actually, we go to war for them. And that's what we're in right now, is that we're fighting a war for Israel. I can see why they would vote no to appease the United States. But they would vote no, too, because they had a heavy hand in slavery. And what they're really saying is that slavery, African slavery, the slave trade, is nothing compared to what happened to them during the Holocaust. There's no equivalency there. There's no equivalency. I don't see it. Like, maybe y'all guys see it, but I don't see it. Israel, y'all guys, besides committing genocide and all that, you could probably say, okay, I'm anti-Jew. I'm not. I am not. The only thing I'm against is the genocide that y'all guys commit and the disrespect for other cultures outside, Judaism. That's my issue. I'm not an anti-Semite. No, I'm not against Jews. I am against Israel. All right, for the position that they took on this particular matter, just because the U.S. is their daddy. And let's talk about Argentina. Why is that? Argentina is beholden to the U.S. Because don't forget, the U.S. floated a $20 billion line of credit to them. Because they were broke. They just messed up completely trying to go from moderate to right wing. And that's why Trump supports them. We're going to revisit this down the line. But one thing I want to leave y'all guys with is it is incumbent upon us as foundational Black Americans, as Black Americans, whatever way you want to call yourself. But if you originated from slavery, your ancestors are from Africa, and they were brought over here and done the most horrible things in history, the most horrible things in history to us. Before I go, I do want to add a little bit more information, and I'm gonna have some links in the show notes, folks, that you can see a lot more information. All right. So I do want to say that Israel's stated reasons, and I do want to reemphasize this, is that Israel's embassy said it opposed the resolution with regret, not because it denied the horror of slavery. And that's bullshit. You said that wording was a principal problem, the wording. All right? Apparently, for the majority of the countries, the wording had no issue. But I think there's a liability out there. And as I said, they are knee benders to Trump and his administration. That is why. Okay, and just to tie this up a little bit, the resolution was led by Ghana and backed by many African states as part of a wider push for reparations and historical recognition. Israel voted alongside the United States and Argentina as the only country to oppose the measure outright. Okay, that sounds good. But anyway, guys, check out the video that we're going to be putting up on YouTube, where we can talk about, in addition to what we're doing now. Okay? But please like, follow, and share. And if we're not a value add, and what we just spoke about is not a value add, please say so, all right? Because our audience is beyond the Black community now, because there are a lot of issues that cross political lines, okay? So, with that said, you have a good week. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.